Hi everyone and welcome to another tutorial. On this particular one, I wanted to cover one device that's actually really powerful within Ableton Live as well. And this is Simpler. So what I want to show you is organic kind of articulations within Simpler. So instead of having a sound that sounds kind of samey and boring and repetitive, there's many different things that we can do in order to create organic and ever kind of evolving kind of sounds, especially when it comes down to parts or kind of melodic elements. It can be extremely powerful. So if this is the first time that you're watching me, my name is Hector. I produce under the alias of Hektagon, and I've been producing for over like 30 years and I've been teaching for well over a decade now. And I thought I'd create this channel to share my knowledge. So welcome, and I hope you enjoy the video. So let's get cracking. So as you can see here, I've got just this is my template project whenever I start a track. So I've got an amen break there. This is going to be drum bass or jungle rather in this particular instance. And what I've got here is I've got a pad which I created is from a sample library. And what I've done is I put it in Simpler, and this is what it sounds like at the moment. What you notice as well is that there's movement to it, right? Like it's never quite the same. It's always kind of changing and morphing. Let me demonstrate that for you now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put on MIDI channel, and obviously anything goes here. I'm going to use just some pad sounds I've got on my library here, just to demonstrate this technique. So I'm going to show you. All right, there you go. So this is like a selection of sounds that you can hear. So let me just bring it down a little bit in volume so it's not too loud for you guys. So let's just find a pad sound. Ideally, you want something that has got a low movement to it. This is kind of like a... Okay, let me just go into that one, for example. It's got some cool stuff in there. All right, so let's drag that and drop it into a MIDI channel. So what I'm going to do now is let's just play around and just create that melody that goes along with the beat. All right, so something very simple. Again, I'm going to go into kind of like ravey, jangly sort of feel, right? This is what I'm really into at the moment. So I'm going to play along with the beat. So let's have a look. Let's bring the volume up a little bit. And open the release a little bit. Right. So a little trick that we can do in Simpler that's extremely powerful is this. We can turn on warping. I don't know if you can see it there at the bottom. And you can see I'm using the classic mode. So that allows me to do looping, which I'm going to turn on as well. But I'm going to play around with that in a minute. I'm just turning it on for now. But what we're going to do is we're going to use the warping. And in order to play around with this technique, it can be really cool for like almost any sound that's kind of like a pad, melodic or texture kind of sound. You can extend the length of that sound by quite a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the warping settings here. And I'm going to select not complex Pro. I'm going to use texture because texture sounds kind of nice and grainy. All right. So I'm just going to play around with the sample. So let me just solo the channel so we can hear it. So this is the pad at the moment. You can hear it sounds a little bit artificial, but that's just part of the texture sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with the grain size. So it sounds a little bit smoother. Not so. If you notice, if you make the grain size very short, it sounds a bit robotic. And this is randomizing the grains, so that's very static. So just by playing around with this, it's already going to make the sound a little bit more dynamic anyway. Because it's constantly kind of shifting and changing, and the grains are constantly being rearranged, which is really, really cool. The other thing as well I like to do is, one of the things that can be really interesting is increasing the length of the sample. And the way to do this is by clicking here on ×2. And that's going to allow us to do extreme time stretching. And as you can see here, you can see that now the length of my sample is around, yeah, it's nearly, 15 bars in length, 16 bars in length, right? So that's pretty cool. And now we've got a much longer sample, right? Really cool. Let's just move this, another little bit of flux. It's even more random. Let's open the grain size. So that sounds a little bit more natural. It just sounds a bit almost like an echo. Right, and the key for this sound is you can hear as I travel through the sample, it changes quite a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an OTT just to make it sound larger than life. So as you know, the OTT preset within the multiband dynamics, what it does is making the quieter parts louder and the louder parts quieter. So it kind of like evens everything out. So I'm just going to add it after the pad. And of course, we're going to dial it down in terms of the output. Right, there we go. And the next thing I'm going to do is let's add some movement onto this sound. So first thing, okay, so let me show you one thing. So another thing that we can do is we can change the length of the loop, or maybe like set, okay, the loop is going to be shorter, for example, right? Just in case. And then what we can do is we can play around with the sample start. So that can also be a really good way to have each note having a different flavor, right? So just by playing around with the sample start, you can see that we can automate it. And we can go here, we can be like, okay, cool. So that first note is going to start there. And then that other note is going to maybe be there, but the last one is going to be farther down. And then this one is going to be around there. Right, that's cool. Maybe let's just make it a little bit higher. There you go, right? So that's interesting because that's adding a little bit of flavor. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to also, besides doing that thing, I'm going to use another device which is really cool in Ableton, which is on the MIDI effects, and this is called expression control. And expression control is very nice because what you can do is you can basically set the expression control to be 5 randomizers if you want it. So I'm going to go over here to the source velocity, and I'm going to go say random. And basically what this does is like it is a random LFO, so to speak, right? It just randomizes the values, but it's retriggering per key, right? Which is really handy. So what we can do here is we can say, okay, I'm going to modulate, right? So this has been automated, the sample start. So I'm going to also modulate the sample start. Let's just map it again. Hold on, let's just do it. There we go. So there you go. So that's a lot, obviously, but let's do less. Now that can be really nice as a way to sort of add a little bit of movement. I'm going to add a little bit of attack. And let's hear the pad again. Let's open the flats. That sounds a bit smoother. And it's already been time stretched by, you know, like 16 bars. So you can hear that we got a little bit of movement there, which is really nice. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a hybrid reverb. I've got some of my own presets I created for the hybrid reverb with my own impulse responses. So I'm going to demonstrate what that sounds like. I'm just going to add it after the OTT here and just add a little bit of like real ambience. So this is 3D ambience. Right, and now you can hear that the pad is constantly changing. And what we can also do as well is we can play around with the selection, right? We can like limit the range. Very cool. And of course, once you got it all set up, like if you want it, you can always swap the sample for something else. I'm going to go to hot swap there and find something else. That's got some interesting movement there, so we can try that with this one. Time stretcher times 2. And that way, every time you hear the pad, there's a little bit of nuance within it, right? Which is really, really cool. Again, you can also find something else and then drag and drop it in there. For example, that has got a little movement to it. And if you wanted to add even more variation, we can randomize here. I'm going to randomize the volume. So with the LFO here, so the volume is going to change, and also maybe do a little bit of pitch drifting. And you can even do a little bit of filtering if you feel a little bit adventurous. And maybe just bring the frequency down. Maybe let's just use the MS-20 filter just to give you a little bit of flavor. And let's just play around with that, see what it sounds like. So although it's the same sample, because of the way it's been affected, right, sort of like it's constantly changing and evolving and creating something slightly different. And here, even with expression control, we could definitely change the source here, and we can say random, right? We can have as many randomizers as we like, so we can add so many of them. And then we can map it to, for example, I don't know, the filter here as a modulator, or maybe actually I wanted to take over with the remote. You see? That obviously is too much, but you can also kind of narrow it down with the minimum and maximum values, and you can have a little bit of nuance. And if you don't want it to jump values, you can do a little bit of rise and fall, and that's going to smooth it out for you. Look. Really nice. Smooth out even more. So, as you can see, it's extremely powerful, and you can have this, and then potentially you can have that as a template. So then if you wanted to just maybe have a sound that sounds organic, you just replace the sample inside and all the settings will be there. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick tutorial. I just wanted to just showcase some of the capabilities for sound design, and especially for expressive sounds. Obviously this was kind of like an old school pad, but with a little bit of nuance, you know, because that's the thing, is like having something that's repetitive, but that at the same time has got movement to it. I think it's super important. It's almost like you can think of like a sampler or simpler almost as an acoustic instrument, where every single note that you hear is ever so slightly different, and that can make the listener pay more attention to the repetitive melody and not get bored with your track, right? So super important. So anyway guys, thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you like the video as well, of course. Any questions, give us a shout, and of course subscribe and give us a like if you like the video. Wicked. Take it easy guys.